Chapter 36. The Master of Adorable Acts, Little Raven. Asher had no idea what kind of wild thoughts Benjamin's mind was cooking up. His attention fell on the eagle nearby, thanks to the intense cram sessions over the past few days. Even without relying on his talent skill, Asher immediately recognized it based on its appearance. This Gale eagle is clearly well-trained. Of course, Storm is my first contracted beast. We've been together for 20 years. Benjamin's grin was so wide it practically split his face. If Asher had praised anything else, Benjamin might not have reacted so openly. But complimenting his pet beast? That was a direct hit to his soft spot. I'm the captain, Benjamin. As long as you stick with us and don't run off, you'll be fine. Thank you, Uncle Ben, Asher responded with a polite smile. Although Benjamin knew this was just a respectful greeting, Asher's demeanor left a positive impression. It made Benjamin feel like this young man was someone worth knowing. The little hint of annoyance he felt earlier completely evaporated. Instead, Benjamin began chatting with Asher. We're still almost an hour early from the agreed time. Why'd you come so early? Benjamin glanced at the spirited Asher, curious. Asher smiled. Better early than late. I wouldn't want everyone waiting on me. The more Benjamin talked with Asher, the more his fondness for him skyrocketed. By the time the other members of the exploration team arrived, they were greeted by a surprising sight. The same captain who'd been complaining the night before about having to babysit some annoying rookie was now chatting happily with a teenager who looked about 17 or 18. The team members. What happened to our captain? Did he not get enough sleep and lose his mind? As the group approached, Benjamin noticed them right away and waved them over enthusiastically. Over here! Come on, let me introduce you all. He first pointed to Asher. This is Asher, who'll be joining us today to check out the mineral deposit. Then he gestured to the only woman in the group. And this is our team's vice-captain, Patu. Hello, Sister Patu. I really appreciate your help today, Asher said, flashing a sweet smile. At over 30 years old, Patu couldn't help but smile warmly at being called sister. She tossed her short hair and replied with a spirited grin, Sweet talker, aren't you? Don't worry, Sis will look after you today. With his talent for building rapport and his deliberate effort to get along, Asher quickly blended in with the group. In no time, it felt as if he'd always been part of the team. As the crowd grew thicker around the area, Asher surveyed his surroundings and asked, Does heading out have a fixed schedule? That's right, Patu nodded, evidently pleased with his attentiveness. While the beasts inside the Forbidden Zone generally avoid the walls and gates due to the special scent they emit, it's still better to be cautious. The main gate only opens 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. At other times, you'd have to use one of the 4 smaller gates, which require a lot more paperwork. The main gate is quicker and more convenient, so most prefer to time their departure accordingly. Thanks to their early arrival, Benjamin and Asher were first in line. With the special clearance provided by President Rob, they breezed through the checkpoint. The moment they stepped beyond the towering gate, a pungent mix of primal, bloody, and plant-like odors assailed their senses. Asher instinctively wrinkled his nose. The relaxed little raven on his shoulder puffed up into a round, feathery ball. Unlike Asher, the seasoned members of the exploration team showed no reaction, clearly accustomed to the environment. First time here? Asher? Patu noticed Asher's discomfort right away, unlike the rest of the rough and tumble group. She couldn't help but laugh when she saw the black puffball on Asher's shoulder. Is that little fluffball your pet beast? So cute, but I wonder how strong it is. Her fingers twitched, looking eager to poke at it. Fighting back the discomfort from the smell, Asher chuckled. Sister Patu, don't tease little Raven. She's just a kid. The black puffball. Omega Mega. A kid? How dare you? Little Raven immediately smoothed down her feathers and began angrily flapping her wings against Asher's shoulder, clearly expressing her indignation. Patu couldn't stop laughing, while the other team members gave Asher complicated looks. They'd initially thought Asher's choice of pet beast was laughable. Why contract something so seemingly useless? But seeing Patu so amused, hold on a second. Kid, you didn't pick this beast just to charm women, did you? Even with the teasing and banter, the team's professionalism remained impeccable. New York City's Forbidden Zone had about 35% of its area explored, and the newly discovered mineral deposit lay in uncharted territory. To reach it, they first needed to traverse that 35%, no easy feat. With nearly 8 years of experience in the area, Benjamin's team planned the most efficient route, minimizing time and danger. Despite their careful planning, they still encountered 2 beasts along the way: a mid-tier 4th-rank Thunderfang tiger and a high-tier 4th-rank yellow-striped giant python. "Storm, protect Asher," Benjamin commanded while summoning his second contracted beast, a shadow leopard. The team worked together seamlessly, defeating both ferocious creatures after an intense battle. What followed was a well-practiced routine: skinning, extracting tendons, collecting energy stones, and salvaging valuable parts of the meat. Anything non-essential was left behind. "What a waste," Benjamin sighed at the pile of leftover meat. "But hunting beasts isn't our main objective this time. We'll have to let it go. Mineral deposits are worth more," Petu said coolly, shaking off the blood splattered on her face. Her straightforward reasoning left everyone convinced. The group pressed on, with Asher quietly observing the battles. He knew he wasn't brave or skilled enough to contribute, but he wasn't idle. Watching the team's tactics gave him new insights into direct combat techniques. "When we get back, we can try some of these out," Asher whispered to Little Raven. The now calm Little Raven rubbed against his cheek and nodded. "Let's do it." Their teamwork will be just as strong, if not stronger, than these seasoned explorers, especially since Little Raven had developed a personal vendetta against Storm, the Gale Eagle. Perhaps it was a bird thing, but Little Raven could not stand Storm getting close to Asher. If she were stronger, she'd already have picked a fight. "Little Raven, this household can only have one bird." Thankfully, the rest of the journey was uneventful. By midday, they finally reached the area of the mineral deposit. Suddenly, a wave of scorching heat engulfed them, as if they'd stepped into a blazing furnace. Chapter 37. The Cost of Luck. It's really a mineral vein. Even the scorching heat couldn't suppress the deep joy emanating from the exploration team. Asher was equally elated. Although they hadn't started inspecting or confirming it, Asher had already noticed a fire blossom swaying at the entrance of the mineral vein. This was a basic herb that only bloomed in areas dense with fire energy. If this were an active mineral vein, there wouldn't be enough energy to make the fire blossom bloom. This proved one thing: there was a high chance that this was a dead vein. Asher attempted to further develop new uses for his Eye of Insight, but unfortunately he failed. He felt a bit regretful, but not overly so. His fingers brushed against the outline of the 4-leaf clover in his jeans pocket. It was Asher's most valuable purple-grade item, Lucky 4-leaf clover. When materialized, it became a small clover badge. Its 4 leaves sparkled a vibrant emerald green, resembling fine gemstones. Wearing it around his neck was a bit conspicuous, so before leaving home, Asher had stuffed it into his pants pocket. Hopefully, it would bring him more good fortune. Once Benjamin calmed down from the excitement, he didn't forget their purpose for being here. "Asher, are you coming with us to explore, or—" "I'll look around nearby and see if I can find the herbs I need," Asher replied without hiding his intentions. "There shouldn't be much danger here, right? Uncle Ben, you can focus on your tasks." Benjamin hesitated for a moment. "Better let Storm keep an eye on you. There are still potential risks around mineral veins, just in case." Asher didn't refuse. Having extra protection wasn't a bad idea. As the team dispersed and began tapping and inspecting various spots around the mineral vein, doing things Asher could barely understand, he decided not to waste time and wandered around the area. The Storm Eagle wasn't thrilled about babysitting one big and one small chick, but under Benjamin's gentle persuasion and promises of a big feast, it reluctantly accepted the task. "Watching 2 brats? No problem. Even if there were 2 more." Asher surveyed the surroundings of the mineral vein. Due to the pervasive fire element energy in the air, the land within a 100-mile radius of the slightly sunken basin had no greenery. Ordinary plants simply couldn't survive here. Yet, the area was filled with large clusters of fire blossoms. The closer they were to the core of the mineral vein, the more vibrant their colors became. Asher also spotted other slightly rarer herbs. Fire-reed grass, low-grade, fire attribute effective for treating burns caused by fire elemental beasts. Molten grass, low-grade, fire attribute, the white sap from its roots could provide a temporary excitement boost for fire and thunder elemental beasts. Scattered around, there was a surprisingly large variety of low and mid-grade herbs. Asher couldn't help but marvel. Truly, this is a recently discovered mineral vein. In veins that has been open for over 50 years, finding even one low-grade fire element herb would be near impossible. But these weren't Asher's targets. He was searching for something rarer, a high-grade fire element herb known as fire condensation grass. According to the Guide to Three-Legged Crow Care, fire condensation grass was the most suitable among all high-grade herbs and fruits. Properly processed, it could help the oriental peacock choose a three-legged golden crow evolution path and condense refined fire essence. Asher had searched for fire condensation grass on official rare item markets, but even the lowest grade ones started at 2 million yuan, and they were often snatched up instantly by beastmasters with fire elemental pets. If he couldn't find fire condensation grass in a fire element dead vein, Asher might as well let the world end. He unconsciously touched the lucky four-leaf clover in his pocket again, muttering softly. It's supposed to be a purple-grade item with a temporary luck buff. So why haven't I felt anything since I left home this morning? The intense fire element energy left Asher drenched in sweat. Even Litile Raven was swaying unsteadily on his shoulder, looking miserable. Although Litile Raven was destined to become a three-legged golden crow, it hadn't evolved yet. This explosive fire energy didn't just irritate humans, it also annoyed birds. To make matters worse, Litile Raven could see the storm eagle following them. This was clear distrust from its beastmaster. What made it even angrier? Litile Raven knew its own strength and couldn't beat that fierce bird just yet. Litile Raven, angry, very angry. Just then, Asher felt a faint warmth in his pocket. Distracted, he didn't notice a small pit ahead, causing his foot to twist and lose balance. In a flurry of awkward movements, Asher managed to regain his footing without falling. But Litile Raven, the round little black bird, rolled off Asher's shoulder, bouncing like a plump ball, and finally wedged itself between two rocks. Asher and Litile Raven exchanged long, silent stares. Covered in dirt, Litile Raven's bright black eyes were the only clean part of its body. Litile Raven, surprised face. Asher. Silence was their unspoken agreement. Ahem. Asher cleared his throat and broke the awkwardness. It's my fault you rolled off. As he spoke, his voice trailed off. Litile Raven's tumble had been comically smooth. Is Litile Raven too well fed? Should I cut back on its meals? Litile Raven shuddered, sensing something ominous. While reflecting on his choices, Asher crouched down and carefully pulled Litile Raven free, even though it took some effort and cost 2 feathers in the process. Before Litile Raven could protest, Asher froze. Wait, what did he just see? Between the 2 rocks, where the gap had widened, he spotted something small and crimson, a herb only half the length of a finger. It was unmistakably fire condensation grass. Not just that, it was a twin-stem variety. The 2 stems shared one root, with tiny fruit resembling red lanterns swaying in the breeze. Asher's mind went blank. How? How could anyone find this hidden in such a random crevice? Recalling the warmth in his pocket earlier, Asher had a guess. Without rushing to confirm it, he dusted off Litile Raven, wiped it clean with a wet tissue, and placed it back on his shoulder. Litile Raven lay limp, too ashamed to care. Even discovering a priceless twin-stem fire condensation grass couldn't restore its lost dignity or feathers. Asher suppressed a laugh, deciding not to rub salt in the wound. Carefully, he used 2 fingers to extract the herb along with the crimson soil and placed it in a prepared container. Mission accomplished. Breathing a sigh of relief, Asher checked his lucky 4-leaf clover. As expected, one of the vibrant leaves had dimmed, appearing dull next to the others. a clear contrast between glass and gemstone. Praise the gotcha gods, Asher murmured. His skill wasn't so useless after all. As for the process, Asher glanced at Litile Raven sulking on his shoulder and pretended nothing had happened. Litile Raven shivers internally. Litile Raven. Chapter 38. Training from Beginner to Buried. On the other side, while Benjamin was inspecting the overall environment of the mine, he was also keeping an eye on Asher. Although the layers of beasts around the mine had been cleared out twice already, there was no guarantee that another one wouldn't pop out of nowhere. Neither Asher nor Little Raven looked like they could fight. If Asher were to accidentally encounter any trouble, Benjamin shuddered. He would be in big trouble. Fortunately, by the time they finished exploring the entire mine, Asher hadn't run into any issues. Benjamin let out a long sigh of relief. The group gathered at the center of the mine. Benjamin patted the Gale Eagle, which had returned to his side. "Storm, good work today?" "Caw." The Gale Eagle let out a long cry. A look of confusion crossed Benjamin's face. As someone who had been contracted to the Gale Eagle for over 20 years, he could usually understand its cries perfectly. But just now, what did Storm say? A big one and a small one playing with mud? Benjamin wondered if he'd misinterpreted it. The high temperatures had left everyone looking like they'd been fished out of water. Soaking wet, clothes alternately drying and re-wetting, with sweat-drenched hair clinging to their foreheads. Everyone was in such a sorry state that it was hard to spot anything unusual. Benjamin gave up, trying to figure it out. "We can head back to the city now." Whatever it was, he didn't know why President Rob had assigned Asher to their team, nor did he care to dig into it. After all, whatever Asher did, President Rob was ultimately responsible for it. It didn't really concern their team. "Thank goodness. This place is great, but it's way too hot." Patu ran her hand through her hair, pretending not to notice Benjamin's earlier scrutiny of Asher, and laughed. The results of their exploration were extremely satisfying. As they returned to the city, the team's faces were full of excitement and smiles. "I wonder when the mine will be open for use. I can't wait to bring my drill beetle here to train. The fire element energy here is incredible." A team member spoke with anticipation. These days, any beast master with 2 or more contracted beasts, 5 out of 10 of them had fire element beasts. After all, among the various elemental attributes, fire element beasts had high offensive power, abundant resources, and were relatively easy to cultivate. Attributes like light and dark might sound fancy, but in terms of resources for cultivation and skill acquisition, they were ridiculously difficult. While they could become powerful, the initial investment was so high that ordinary people couldn't afford it. Finding resources for them was also a nightmare. These beasts were the kind you should avoid unless you own a gold mine. They took a side gate back into the city because they had run into a slightly troublesome Tier 4 advanced centipede vine on the way. It had taken quite a bit of effort and time to defeat it. Not wanting to waste it, they dragged its corpse back to the city with them. By the time they arrived at the city gate, they were the only ones entering through the 4 side gates. The entry procedure was relatively simple, mainly requiring them to register the items they brought back. For Benjamin's team, it was straightforward. They carried back various materials from the beasts they hunted, including the whole centipede vine. When it was Asher's turn, as Asher pulled out a twin flame condensation grass from his bag, the 2 registration officers and the team members all held their breath, eyes wide open. Seriously? What were they seeing? "Hey, twin flame condensation grass? Is this a joke?" "This is the certificate issued by Chairman Rob," Asher explained without elaborating further, silently producing a handwritten note signed by President Rob. It essentially allowed Asher to take any resource out of the restricted area. The staff who had been about to ask if he wanted to sell it immediately fell silent. Great. The moment they saw the handwritten note from Chairman Rob, they knew there was no chance he would sell it. After finishing the registration, Asher calmly put the twin flame condensation grass back into his bag in front of everyone, leaving them speechless. They understood that Asher was being cautious, avoiding drawing attention to himself by keeping it concealed. But his actions were so rough. Wasn't he afraid of damaging the flame condensation grass? The flame condensation grass was famously resilient. As long as it had sufficient fire energy, it was even easier to maintain than a cactus. Nearly impossible to kill. Its only downside was how incredibly rare it was. The tense silence persisted until Asher and Benjamin's team parted ways. Even then, Benjamin and the others didn't ask a single question. Asher smiled. Good. Everyone knew their boundaries. We're heading home now, Asher said, smiling at Little Raven. Back at home, he bathed Little Raven, placed it in a spot where it could bask in moonlight, and found the best location for the twin flame condensation grass, a spot bathed in sunlight from sunrise to sunset. Only then did he clean himself up. Asher kept busy until late at night, but he didn't forget to message President Rob. With the confirmation that the mine was a dead mine and having secured the twin flame condensation grass, the rest of the matter was no longer Asher's concern. The focus now shifted to June training with the little firefox. Their hard work and perseverance would determine the outcome. So, as Asher resumed his daily grind the next day, June and the little firefox began a grueling new training regimen. Day 1. June and the little firefox were brimming with enthusiasm and determination. Day 2. They were sluggish and hesitant. Day 3. I give up. I'm taking the little firefox down with me. June burst into the house drenched in sweat, shouting dramatically, "This life is unbearable." Limp as a noodle in her arms, the little firefox whimpered in agreement. Yip yip yow. I second it. Agreed. Let's give up together. It really couldn't take it anymore. Ivy couldn't help but laugh as she took the little firefox from June's arms. Go take a shower first. I'll clean up the firefox for you. When you're done, dinner will be ready. I even made some sweet flower nectar tea for you, she said gently. Her soft, soothing words comforted both June and the exhausted little firefox. After her shower, June sat on the couch, holding a cold, sweet cup of nectar tea. She let out a long sigh. I'm so tired. Ivy. June looked pitifully at Ivy. Before she could finish saying to quit, Ivy handed her the freshly washed and fluffy little firefox, now exuding a pleasant fragrance. The smooth, shiny fur was so irresistibly soft that June couldn't help stroking it repeatedly. No quitting, Ivy said sweetly but firmly. You promised to do this, and it's good for both you and the firefox, right? No slacking off. If you want to become an excellent beastmaster, you must invest time, effort, and sweat. Her smile was sweet, but her words were merciless. June was left speechless. Besides, Asher went to great lengths to get you permission to train in a fire element dead mine that hasn't even opened to the public yet. It wasn't easy for him, Ivy added. You can't let him down? June remembered how shocked she'd been when Asher called to inform her about this opportunity. As a descendant of a family of beastmasters, she hadn't managed to pull this off, but Asher had? How did he do it? Though she didn't know the details, she was aware of the effort Asher had put into helping the little firefox evolve. Clenching her fist, June declared, Don't worry, little fox, and I won't disappoint you. Yet by the third day, June was already on the verge of collapse. That place is just too hot. I feel like I'm trapped in a furnace, with flames licking at me from below. She shuddered at the memory of the mine's training conditions. It was unbearable. For someone who could barely endure summer without air conditioning, the mine's heat was like torture. She felt like she was being steamed alive, with no clarity of mind left to train. From beginner to buried. That's exactly what's happening to me. But the firefox is making great progress, Ivy observed. The exhaustion was evident, but so was the increase in its aura. The little firefox had indeed become stronger. Chapter 39, June? Scam for looks? Impossible, right? This was a fact that couldn't be denied. The harder June and the little firefox trained, the faster the little firefox's strength skyrocketed. In just 3 days, the little firefox had broken through to level 3 lower tier and was on the verge of reaching level 3 intermediate tier. It was far faster than the growth June had achieved training it for half a month before. Not to mention, her prior training with the little firefox mainly focused on skill mastery and learning. Leveling up was just a bonus. June, speaking of which, the expedition team Asher recommended is pretty reliable. The Forbidden Zone was dangerous. June lacked the strength to stay at the mines for half a day alone, so venturing in by herself would have been unwise. To avoid accidents, Asher had introduced her to Benjamin's expedition team. Faced with the opportunity to accompany June into the Forbidden Zone for training, Benjamin had no reason to refuse. Not to mention, for June, problems solvable with money weren't problems at all. Once the money was in place, Benjamin's team immediately became her bodyguards and sparring partners without complaints. While fighting against the little fire fox, the team members practically spoon-fed it moves, no longer aiming to improve themselves, but to help the fire fox figure out how to fight more effectively. With the right time, place, and people all aligned, if the little fire fox didn't become stronger, who would? In addition to mastering the skills Flame Bite, Fire Strike, and Fireball, the little fire fox also learned a fire-type skill called Thermal Surge. This skill allowed it to unleash greater power for 2 minutes, but left it in a weakened state afterward. Thinking about this, June couldn't help but complain. I seriously suspect that it learned this skill just because it was too hot at the mines. June spoke so confidently. Ivy's expression turned helpless. What kind of logic is that? But she didn't argue back because she knew June was genuinely exhausted. If it weren't for not wanting to break her promise to Asher, June would have given up long ago. After all, this wasn't the first time something similar had happened since they were kids. That June managed to endure 3 full days before complaining surprised Ivy. Not bad. Really not bad. Are you going again tomorrow? Ivy blinked her bright, innocent eyes and asked. June fell silent. She hesitated. Hugging the little fire fox, she collapsed on the sofa, closed her eyes, and placed her hands over the fox. She looked utterly defeated. Ivy repeated, Are you going tomorrow? You're so annoying, Ivy. Without opening her eyes, June complained. You were the one encouraging me before. Now you're asking in that indulgent tone. How frustrating. It is making me waver. Are you going tomorrow? I'll go. I'll go. June sprang up, sitting cross-legged, glaring at Ivy in frustration. Ivy maintained an innocent expression, her clear gaze holding a hint of amusement. I'm doing this to get stronger. I want to be an excellent beast master. The little fire fox must grow stronger and evolve. June declared indignantly. It's not because I feel bad about Asher. Uh-huh. I get it. Ivy nodded. Yip yip. Yip yip ow. The little fire fox nestled in June's arms nodded along in agreement. It's the fox that wants to be strong, the fox that wants to fight birds, the fox that, Yip Yip, is so tired. But thinking about beating up birds next time, the little fire fox felt it could push on a bit longer. June and the little fire fox shared the same mindset, spurring their bodies and spirits to continue their relentless trips to the mines. June's uncharacteristic persistence finally caught her parents' attention. At the edge of the Forbidden Zone, Harry was leading his students to a newly discovered extraordinary creature nest. Noticing the name on his ringing phone, he signaled the nearby security teacher to take over and stepped aside to answer. Honey, what's up? Finished your work already? Harry's voice was gentle, his eyes crinkling behind his glasses. I'm teaching outside right now, but I'll come home early today. On the other end of the line, Jane wasn't so easily placated. She cut straight to the point. Harry, have you forgotten you have a daughter? Do you even know what June's been doing at home lately? Hearing the news from Dawn had Jane frowning. All you care about are your students. Why don't you pay attention to your own daughter? Don't worry, honey. Harry wasn't rattled by Jane's fiery tone. Whatever you've heard, it's already happened. We can't change it now. No matter how anxious you get, we can't just fly back to New York City. Let's talk it through calmly. As long as June hasn't crossed any legal boundaries, it's not a big deal. And honestly, if she's done something wrong, it's on both of us for not being there for her. Harry's reasoning soothed Jane. Fine, but come back early. Jane said, I'm worried she's being scammed for money. Or worse, her looks. Oh boy. Harry's eyes opened. This sounds serious. He'd been planning to squeeze in some extra work, but now he didn't dare delay. For once, he clocked out on time and returned to their faculty housing. The moment he stepped inside, he greeted his wife with a big hug. Jane's anger lessened considerably. You only know how to do this. Jane rolled her eyes at him. Harry didn't argue. pulling her to the sofa and holding her hand as he asked, "So, what's this about June being scammed for money or looks?" "Money, maybe. June's always been a spender, but we can't blame her for that when we've prioritized work over her company." Pushing up his glasses, Harry added, "But scam for looks? Not likely. June isn't even as pretty as her mom." Jane rolled her eyes again. "You're just sweet-talking me. June may only have half my looks, but with our family's wealth, plenty of people would try to deceive her." She pulled out her phone and handed it to Harry. "Look," Dawn laid it all out clearly. "Your daughter's been charmed by some penniless pretty boy. She even dragged Ivy into it." Harry scanned the photos and text detailing how a boy named Asher shamelessly clung to June and Ivy, maintaining ambiguous relationships with both. He opened a picture of Asher and nodded. "He's handsome. Not a bad deal for June if they're dating." "Jane, what kind of father are you?" Jane was livid. "That boy's tricked June into believing he can help the Firefox evolve. Does he think discovering new evolution routes is easy? Even the Epstein family couple only has vague leads after years of research. What proof does he have? Empty promises, that's all. And he's guiding June on how to train the Firefox? June's actually listening to him? When I was training her, she never listened like this." "Harry, I got it. I see what's really upsetting her." He patted Jane's back to calm her before saying, "Kids rebel. It's normal. And since we're not always around, it's even more expected. As for this Asher, I do know a little about him." Jane, who had been about to blow up again, raised an eyebrow in surprise. Given Harry's busy schedule, it was surprising he even knew their daughter's name. How did he know about Asher? Her curiosity piqued. "You've been busy with research and haven't kept up with the news," Harry explained. "A few days ago, Professor Iris from New York City held a conference about a breakthrough in the evolution of the honeybug." Jane's eyes widened in shock. "Honeybug? Evolution? Are you joking?" Harry smiled faintly. "It's true." He then pointed at Asher's photo on her phone. Not only that, Professor Iris publicly thanked a young man named Asher at the conference. Instantly, Jane's view of Asher shifted. Chapter 40. Little Fire Fox's Evolution? Flame Fox doesn't look like this. Professor Iris publicly expressing gratitude? Just hearing this name in connection with such a term made Jane feel utterly incredulous. As a beast breeder, Jane had a well-known reputation in the industry. Although there was still a considerable gap between her and the top-tier breeders with deep prestige, she was undoubtedly a standout among her peers. Being officially invited to participate in a special project was proof of her capabilities. As a result, Jane knew many outstanding figures in the field, and Professor Iris was one of them. Professor Iris was about 10 years younger than Jane, with a strong specialization in beast evolution. Her academic achievements were stellar, and she always had major projects in hand. She wasn't arrogant, but she certainly wouldn't bow down to someone inferior to her. For Professor Iris to publicly express gratitude, Jane's gaze toward Asher's photo gradually grew strange. How did he manage this? "I refuse to believe that Professor Iris would thank a young boy for no reason," Jane muttered, looking at the photos Dawn had sent her again, inspecting them closely to see if Asher had 3 heads or 6 arms. No matter how hard she thought, Jane couldn't figure it out. "The last time I met her at a seminar, her attitude toward me was just the polite courtesy a junior shows to a senior. Respect? Gratitude? That's impossible." Unable to glean anything unusual from Asher's photos, she was at a loss. Harry chuckled. Isn't it possible that Professor Iris's discovery and validation of the evolution process of the honeybug is connected to Asher? Jane immediately rejected the idea. Impossible. That's even more absurd. She looked at Asher's photo again. He was about the same age as her daughter. Helping Professor Iris confirm the evolution of the honeybug? What a joke. Jane looked at Harry, waiting for a better explanation. Harry just smiled at her, blinked, and said nothing more. Jane's expression shifted from disbelief to doubt, and then to shock. Seriously? He a young boy? Help Professor Iris? Harry nodded, pulling up articles from several academic public accounts on his phone. Take a look. After the press conference, Professor Iris publicly stated that Asher discovered the secret to the honeybug's evolution and provided critical suggestions during the validation process. After reading, Jane remained in a daze. I only participated in a secluded special project for less than 3 months. How do I feel like I've been left behind by the world? Not left behind, but the world seemed to have hit the fast-forward button. The evolved fairy butterfly, upgraded from the honeybug, had jumped in grade from unranked to intermediate low tier, an unprecedented leap that was nothing short of astonishing. After repeatedly confirming that the Asher Professor Iris was thanking was indeed the same as the one in the photos, Jane's initially prickly attitude toward Asher underwent a complete transformation. She stared at Asher's photo, then glanced at her daughter, who usually only knew how to spend money. She suddenly remarked, "If this is true, he probably wouldn't bother tricking June for money or love." With Professor Iris's endorsement, if he wanted to con someone, he could easily find someone better than my daughter. Harry nodded. Exactly. As for the stuff Dawn sent, better not look at it. Probably just his exaggerated imagination, because June doesn't want to play with him and complains to us instead. Then Jane's brows furrowed again. If he isn't scamming June, does that mean he's serious about finding a new evolution path for her little firefox? Jane's tone was grim. Doesn't that make our gullible daughter his experiment subject? Harry didn't know how to respond to that. He could understand the ambition of kids at this age to achieve something. I think we should just leave it alone, Harry said sincerely. Jane was furious. Leave it alone? She's your daughter. You're just going to let her mess around like this? This is pure nonsense. She pointed to the last 2 photos, one showing June and her little firefox leaving the Forbidden Zone in the morning, and another of them returning at night, battered and exhausted. If we don't step in, she'll start treating the Forbidden Zone like her backyard. Does she think it's a playground? Asher must have said something to make her do this. Jane said angrily, "No way. I have to go home." She couldn't sit still any longer and snatched back her phone to book a flight. She wanted the earliest one, not willing to delay even a minute. She had to go back tonight. Breeding beasts was never a simple, overnight task. Before, when June was slacking off, Jane didn't pressure her because the little firefox's potential was limited. As long as June eventually woke up with a desire to grow stronger, Jane, as a beast breeder, could easily plan the little firefox's future direction. At most, June would waste a few years. Not a big deal. But reckless training and breeding could cause irreversible damage to both beast masters and their beasts. Jane couldn't tolerate even the slightest risk of that happening. Just as Harry was about to try persuading her again, Jane's phone rang. It was a special, serene ringtone like mountain streams flowing. She had set this ringtone specifically for messages from June. For years, this ringtone had almost never gone off. But today it rang. Something big must have happened. Harry and Jane exchanged uneasy glances. They had just been discussing their daughter. Did something really happen to her? Quick, check what it is. They couldn't worry about anything else now. Jane fumbled with her phone and almost dropped it. With Harry's help, she finally managed to open the message from June. It was a photo. The image showed June holding a never-before-seen beast in her arms. In the photo, June radiated pure joy from within. It wasn't some catastrophic incident they couldn't handle. The couple sighed in relief before their professional instincts kicked in. As a professor of beasts and a beast breeder, they immediately turned their focus to the mysterious beast June was hugging tightly. Large, fluffy ears marked it as a fox-like beast. Its body was covered in warm, fiery red fur, with shorter white fur on its cheeks and a small patch of white on its belly. Its bright fox-like eyes and faintly smiling mouth exuded a majestic aura. One look was enough to tell it wasn't an ordinary beast. Standing upright beside June, it was a full head taller than her. Behind it were 3 fluffy tails, resembling blazing flames. After carefully analyzing its features, both Jane and Harry's expressions turned strange. "Why do I feel like?" Jane hesitated, glancing at Harry. Harry's serious expression confirmed her suspicion. It looks a lot like the evolved form of the little fire fox. But the problem was, the flame fox didn't look like this. The evolved flame fox was about twice as large as the little fire fox, with only its tail's color becoming more vivid. Overall, its appearance didn't change much. But what was this fox in the photo? Their earlier argument immediately came to mind. A mind-blowing thought flashed through their heads, and they simultaneously exclaimed, "A new evolution path for the little firefox?" Neither of them could stay seated anymore. Both Jane and Harry were desperate to go home. "We need the earliest flight. You text June and ask her what's going on. Is this really the little firefox's evolution?" Harry urged. Division of labor. They couldn't waste another second. New York City. It was the 11th day since June had insisted on taking the little fire fox to the mines. Even with Asher's promise as motivation, she was reaching her limit. Completely exasperated, June called Asher. "Asher, my little fire fox has already learned 6 skills. I'm done. I can't go on anymore." We're both completely drained. She was ready to give up. She was ready to slack off. Even Asher couldn't make her get up again. Is that so?" Asher's gentle voice came through the phone, as soothing as cool rain on June's weary body. "Well then, let's stop here for now. I'll come by after work tonight to check on your little firefox's progress." Chapter 41. A Moment of Spiritual Connection. Just a second ago, June was sprawled out on the ground with a "don't even think about making me get up" look on her face. Suddenly, she bolted upright. "Are you serious?" Even through the phone, Asher could imagine June's overly excited expression just from her voice. Asher felt a bit embarrassed. Did he really come across as such an unreasonable person? Sure, he wanted the little fire fox to evolve faster, which would make it easier for him to snag some fire-based skills. But that didn't mean he was a reincarnated slave driver, intent on pushing June and the little fire fox into relentless, nonstop training. Anyone would break under that kind of pressure. Asher hadn't mentioned it before because he thought June would regulate herself. What he didn't expect was that after he said it would be best for the little fire fox to learn 6 skills, June actually endured for a full 11 days without rest. The moment she hit her goal, she collapsed flat on the ground without waiting a single second. Asher, an imaginary sense of guilt pricked at his non-existent conscience. "It's true, really. You can go home right now if you want. Don't push yourself and the little fire fox so hard that you develop a stress response," Asher said helplessly. He wasn't some kind of devil, and he definitely didn't believe in exhausting resources for short-term gains. June chuckled awkwardly. "No worries. I'm already here, and I can handle it. I'll leave after 4, okay? I'll send you my address, so make sure to come over after work." Without waiting for Asher to reply, June hung up on her own. Getting up from the ground, June looked invigorated again as she stared at Patu, who was responsible for sparring with her today. Dusting off the crimson dirt on her clothes, she shouted, unbothered by her disheveled appearance. Again, since it was the last day, she wanted to finish with a flourish. "Got your energy back after chatting with your boyfriend?" Patu teased with an amused smile. Before June could retort, Patu launched another round of attacks. Lightning Mink, Lightning Prayer. The crackling lightning filled the air, making June and the little fire fox shudder instinctively. "Wait," June's eyes widened in shock. "Lightning Prayer? One of the lightning element's ultimate skills? Isn't this a bit much? She was only here for sparring, wasn't she? Wasn't this supposed to be an ordinary practice session?" Patu flashed a gentle smile, but her words were anything but, "Well, since it's the last day I'm sparring with you, as someone who's trained with you all these days, I have to see how much you've grown, right? If your skills are too weak, you'll be ruining our reputation." Patu winked playfully. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I wouldn't hurt a paying customer." She continued, "If you don't move now, the next round of attacks will be coming soon." June reacted instantly. Little Fire Fox, Thermal Energy, then follow up with Fire Dance. No holding back now. Since it was the last day, she might as well go all out. At 6:10 p.m., Asher arrived at Rose Villa Garden. Looking at the luxurious and elegant mansion in front of him, he couldn't help but marvel again. Having money really is great. If he could choose, he'd also want to start life as a golden spoon Beast Tamer. Since June had already informed the security, Asher passed through without issue. Asher, over here! Ivy called out, waving her fair arm enthusiastically. She was dressed in a loose, casual dress, her hair casually draped over her chest, with her fairy butterfly fluttering nearby. Her face was radiant with joy. Asher strode toward her. "Long time no see," he greeted with a smile. Ivy returned a sweet smile. She led Asher through a garden filled with roses and climbing vines until they reached June's house, where they found her sprawled on the couch like a boneless creature. "June, Asher is here," Ivy called out loudly. Without lifting her head, June groaned. "So what? I'm completely out of it right now." Her voice dragged lazily. "What's wrong with her?" Asher asked, curious. Ivy pursed her pink lips and whispered in a voice only Asher could hear. Apparently, everyone in her training group gave her a farewell challenge match today. Asher immediately understood. Wow, the team gave her a series of farewell sparring matches, huh? Considering the power gap between June and her teammates. Yeah, Asher silently lit a candle for her in his heart. Not his fault. How was he supposed to know they'd be so ruthless? June probably needs a few days of proper rest, Ivy said, smiling apologetically. Understandable. Balance is important. 11 days of intense training to master 3 skills. That's way too extreme, Asher nodded. Even someone as shamelessly opportunistic as Asher felt they'd pushed June and the little firefox too hard. As he approached, he opened his eye of insight to check on the little firefox. Pet beast, little firefox. Attribute, fire. Species, intermediate extraordinary, low tier. Level, tier 4. Skills, flame bite, fire assault, fireball, thermal energy, smoke screen, fire dance. Evolution routes, flame fox, fire fox queen. Evolution conditions met. Body feels warm, sleepy. Asher blinked in surprise. Wait, what? Little fire fox met all the conditions for evolution? But which evolution path is fulfilled? And if the conditions are met, why hasn't it evolved yet? Flame Fox Evolution Path. Requirements. Breakthrough to Tier 5, not met. Master 4 Fire-type skills met. Consume Fire-type high-tier food for 30 consecutive days met. Consume 7 Fire Attribute Energy Stones met. Consume a Scorching Fruit met. Firefox Queen Evolution Path. Requirements. Bond level 100, 100 out of 100, met. Breakthrough to Tier 4 met. Master 6 Fire-type skills met. Consume Fire-type high-tier food for 60 consecutive days met. Consume 15 Fire Attribute Energy Stones, 21/15, met. Consume a Lava Fruit met. Asher fell silent. How to put this? He thought the issue might be a lack of bonding or the missing lava fruit, things he could help with. Instead, rich people really are something else. Not only had they fed the little firefox over 20 fire attribute energy stones when it only needed 15, but they'd even given it the rare and high-tier lava fruit without him noticing. What's wrong? Ivy asked when she saw Asher staring at the little firefox in silence, concern evident on her face. Hearing the key word, June perked up from her limp position on the couch. Is something wrong with the little firefox? Seeing the two girls getting anxious, Asher didn't tease them. He looked at June seriously and said, "No, the little firefox is in great condition. So great, in fact, that I think you can try evolving it." Ivy! June! June shot to her feet, clutching the little firefox tightly, and dashed to Asher's side. Ivy joined her, sitting on Asher's other side. They practically pinned him to the couch, and someone handed him a cup of sweet floral honey water. Explain in detail. Are you sure? June and Ivy stared at him, eyes wide. Asher nodded. Based on the little firefox's state, it's ready to evolve. The bond between you and the little firefox has significantly deepened. You must have felt it yourself, right? Asher gestured with his free hand. It was a sensation hard to put into words. June immediately understood. Yeah, I think I get what you mean. There was this one moment, just a single moment. June stroked the little firefox thoughtfully, trying to find the right words. I felt completely connected to the little firefox. June said seriously. It's not like, seems like, vaguely or feeling something uncertain. It's that I truly understood what the little firefox was thinking. But it was only for a moment. That moment passed in the blink of an eye, and June didn't know when the next moment of mental connection would come. Asher nodded, as if he thought of something and had a guess. Try to recall that feeling now, and try to actively connect with a little firefox mentally, Asher said gently. You can try to do it like when you meditate, using your spiritual C to actively communicate with the little firefox. June closed her eyes to Asher's almost hypnotic voice. She slowly gathered her spiritual power, really following Asher's advice, trying to link her spiritual C with the little firefox. Slowly, even slower is fine. Asher's voice was very calm, and he even used his talent skill, affinity, to lower June's resistance towards him. Then, imagine letting the little firefox adjust its power and evolve. As Asher's voice slowly faded, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from the little firefox in June's arms. A scarlet, burning, familiar evolution light. At that moment, the little firefox evolved. Chapter 42, Beauty Value Up Big Fox. June stood amidst the crimson light, her wide eyes unable to see anything. But instead of feeling panic, she felt unusually calm. She lowered her head to look at the place in her arms where the little firefox should have been, but all she could see was a brighter red ball of light, growing larger and longer bit by bit. From the size of a half-arm-long little firefox, it gradually stretched out to about the same height as June. Even though she couldn't see anything, June first felt a pair of furry paws resting on her shoulders. Then, her entire body was engulfed in a soft, fluffy mass. Little firefox? June reached out and hugged the fluffy mass in front of her, speaking with absolute certainty. It is definitely the little firefox, my evolved little firefox. But she had no idea what form the little firefox had evolved into. Why does it feel taller and bigger than me? The crimson light lasted for about a minute, a time that felt both long and short to June. When the light finally dissipated, June was finally able to see the little firefox after its evolution. Long, warm, silky crimson fur. Big, fluffy red ears that twitched slightly. Behind it were three large, swaying tails moving left and right. And finally, a height that allowed it to easily hold her in its arms. June was so shocked she was at a loss. No way. Is this really the evolved little firefox? Flame Fox doesn't look like this at all. So Asher really managed to guide the little firefox into evolving down a new path. June's mind was flooded with a whirlwind of chaotic thoughts. Then, all of a sudden, she was overcome with pure joy. Ha! My little firefox successfully evolved. Her confusion was quickly replaced with uncontrollable excitement. June buried her face in the fur of the firefox queen, rubbing vigorously. She let go of the fox's fur and launched herself toward Asher. Asher tried to sidestep her, but Ivy, standing nearby, blocked his movement. A soft body slammed heavily into Asher's arms, and two pale arms excitedly wrapped around his waist. Asher, overwhelmed by the fact that the little firefox had successfully evolved into a completely new form, June acted purely on instinct. She bounced up and down in Asher's arms, unable to stay still, loudly exclaiming, "Asher, you're amazing. You're incredible." Her words were an endless stream of compliments for Asher. Ivy's cheeks were flushed red as well, nodding repeatedly, looking entirely in agreement with June's words. That's right. Asher really is this amazing. Unlike the coincidence of discovering the evolution of the honeybug last time, the evolution of the little firefox was entirely under Asher's guidance this time. Witnessing the entire process firsthand, Ivy and June were both deeply and intensely shaken. Asher patted June's head. Your teamwork with the little firefox was also very important. After all, I could only provide suggestions. The ones who endured and pushed through the challenges were you and the little firefox together. He spoke with genuine sincerity. 11 days of sparring with the mining and exploration team. Even though their opponents went easy on them, the hardships and exhaustion were undeniable. For a spoiled girl and her fox to persevere was beyond his expectations. Listening to Asher's gentle praise, the usually carefree June suddenly felt a little embarrassed. It was only then that she realized she was still hugging Asher's waist. June, asterisk, asterisk. What am I doing? June nervously let go of her arms around Asher and backed away as if nothing had happened, pretending nothing was amiss as she dove back into the fluffy embrace of the Fire Fox Queen. She was just too excited. That's all it was. Asher chuckled but didn't tease her, allowing June to keep her fragile composure intact. However, while Asher let her off the hook, the Fire Fox Queen did not. Whoa! The Fire Fox Queen lowered its head. Its once round, watery eyes had evolved into slanted, fox-like eyes, captivating, alluring, and utterly enchanting. It let out a low, purring sound, its voice now deeper and more mature compared to the little Fire Fox's youthful tone. Even though June knew the Fire Fox Queen was mocking her, she couldn't stop her ears from turning red under its charm. And no one can resist a beautiful big sister. And the same goes for a beautiful big fox. Even Asher, seeing the evolved appearance of the Fire Fox Queen, couldn't help but marvel internally. Now it truly has the aura of a queen. He opened up the skill interface. Pet Beast, Fire Fox Queen. Attribute, Fire. Species, Advanced Extraordinary Low. Level, Tier 4 Low. Skills, Royal Aura, Flame Bite, Fire Attack, Fireball, Heat Wave, Smoke Screen, Dance of Fire. Thoughts? Little June is so adorable. I want to snuggle with June. I want to play pranks on June. Asher didn't rush to read further. He just briefly checked the Fire Fox Queen's updated basic information. Advanced Extraordinary? Asher was a little surprised. The Flame Fox is a mid-tier extraordinary high, and the Fire Fox Queen, as a queen, couldn't possibly rank lower than that. What surprised him was that he had expected the Fire Fox Queen to be at least Advanced Extraordinary mid, but it was still a bit lower. It seemed the criteria for ranks above Advanced Extraordinary were stricter than he had imagined. The added skill, Royal Aura, caught his eye, and he clicked to read the description. Royal Aura, a unique trait of extraordinary creatures with royal attributes. Exerts a powerful intimidation effect on non-royal beasts. 80% success rate. For counter-attribute non-royal creatures, the intimidation effect doubles, with a 20% chance of incapacitating the opponent. Asher's eyes widened. Wow! He wondered if this skill could be extracted for Little Raven to learn. Although it overlapped with Little Raven's Eagle Eye intimidation effect, it was undoubtedly powerful, a top-tier skill among all intimidation abilities. And as for those thoughts, well, even as a little fire fox, its playful and rebellious nature was evident. June would likely have her hands full in the future, constantly matching wits with the Fire Fox Queen. Not to mention, the Fire Fox Queen's beauty was simply irresistible. The evolved Fire Fox Queen was about a size larger than June, with long, flowing fur that made it look like a giant plush toy. Who could resist snuggling with such a gorgeous big fox? Even if it played pranks on them, they'd probably accept it willingly. June, little Fire Fox. Amazing! Ivy quickly ran over, throwing herself into the Fire Fox Queen's plush fur that looked oh so comfortable. The Fire Fox Queen didn't reject Ivy's affection. It even opened its arms, letting both June and Ivy snuggle into the soft fur on its chest. Watching this, Asher's hands itched a little, but he managed to restrain himself. Chapter 43. The Photo That Caused Chaos. The Fire Fox Queen held Ivy and June in her embrace, her gaze shifting slightly as she easily noticed the subtle twitch of Asher's hand. Her naturally upturned, smiling lips curved even more prominently. Yip yip you. The Fire Fox Queen proactively stretched her two large ears toward Asher, even bending slightly to keep them at a height where Asher could easily reach with just a single motion. Asher, his hand, trembled slightly again, faced with such temptation. Was there really anyone who could resist? Asher's hand inched upward. The next second, a furious little raven launched a flurry of winged assaults at Asher's arms. Asher hurriedly cupped the enraged little raven in his palms, trying to soothe her. Little raven, Carrot, too late. Men are all untrustworthy. That stupid fox can't possibly be better than me. Fuming, little raven lowered her head and pecked fiercely at Asher's hand, the same one that had just reached out toward the Firefox Queen, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Asher coughed awkwardly, trying to play it off. Well, Little Raven is my bonded beast. Of course, I like Little Raven the most, he declared with utmost seriousness, evading the subject entirely. Little Raven, oh, I don't believe you. You were just about to touch her. Asher quickly switched tactics. How about a little grooming, Little Raven? He began to skillfully smooth down Little Raven's feathers along her back, stroke after stroke. Familiar movements soon had Little Raven squinting in comfort, her swelling fury ebbing away bit by bit. Just as this strange tension seemed about to dissolve completely, Little Raven's gaze suddenly locked onto that of the Firefox Queen. Little Raven, provocation? That stupid fox is definitely provoking me, right? Firefox Queen, yip you, yes, this fox has evolved. This fox has grown stronger. What are you going to do about it? Peaceful resolution? Forget about it. Little Raven and the Firefox Queen looked ready to throw down any moment. June quickly pulled the Firefox Queen back, while Asher did the same with Little Raven, ensuring maximum distance between the two beasts. He focused on calming his own. You can't beat her right now, Asher started with a brutally honest statement. Little Raven, who had just been hopping mad, instantly froze, staring at Asher with her small black eyes. Fine, I'll get stronger too, and then I'll snatch back my Beast Master's heart from that stupid fox. The plan sounds good, Asher encouraged as he stroked Little Raven's head. We'll get stronger together. Then you can face her head on. Until then, let's bear with it a little. Okay. Little Raven hopped on Asher's palm a few times before reluctantly nodding. The little tuft of feathers on her head bobbed along, reflecting her begrudging acceptance. Fine, I'll endure, for now. Meanwhile, June's attempts at appeasement weren't going nearly as smoothly. The little Firefox? A symbol of rebellious youth. The Firefox Queen? A pro-level rebel. Faced with June tugging at her large ears and nagging nonstop, the Firefox Queen chose to recline leisurely on the sofa, slowly licking her paw. What? Stop provoking the bird? Sorry, the fox didn't hear a thing. June. Rage meter max. But one glance at the Firefox Queen's captivatingly graceful posture, and all her anger deflated like a punctured balloon. June grumbled, puffing up her cheeks before diving back into the Firefox Queen's fur, aggressively rubbing her face against the big fluffy tail. The Firefox Queen lay flat, allowing herself to be hugged and rubbed without a care. By then, Asher had finally calmed Little Raven down and placed her back on his shoulder. He walked over to June and Ivy. Now that Little Firefox's evolution is complete, you've all worked hard today. Rest up tonight, and we'll discuss any remaining matters the day after tomorrow, during the holiday, Asher suggested with a smile. I'll head back first. Since the Firefox's evolution had been successful, everything else would follow naturally. No need to rush. June gave him an okay gesture. All right. June suddenly perked up, raising her head from the fluff. Since the new evolved form of Little Firefox was developed by you, why don't you give her a new name? It felt a bit odd to keep calling such a large fox Little Firefox. Firefox Queen, Asher answered promptly. Doesn't her evolved appearance remind you of a proud queen? June rubbed her chin thoughtfully, scrutinizing the Firefox Queen from head to toe. It does, I suppose, but that rebellious attitude kind of overshadows the queenly vibe. Upon hearing this, the Firefox Queen's three long tails wrapped tightly around June's legs. Her gaze toward June radiated pure betrayal. June turned away, steadfastly avoiding the fox's eyes. Unable to resist the allure of fluff, yet still wanting to discipline a rebel, June quickly mastered the art of selective ignoring. Would it be okay for me to show her off to my friends? June asked. Do I need to keep this secret? The Firefox's evolution was Asher's research accomplishment, so even if June wanted to brag, she wouldn't do it without his consent. No problem, Asher replied nonchalantly. Photos, then? Sharing them on social media? Oh, and send me a copy too, he added with a chuckle. With Asher's permission, June instantly perked up, her weariness from a long day at the mines vanishing completely. Post it on social media? Nah. What if someone blocks me? then I wouldn't be able to brag properly. June exclaimed, waving her hands excitedly. I'm sending this photo to everyone. I want the whole world to see my gorgeous big fox. And just like that, June got to work. She posed with the Firefox Queen, Ivy snapped photos, and they spent time editing for maximum effect. After a flurry of activity, June sent the photos to everyone in her contact list, every single one, ensuring her bragging rights were fully exercised. Don't worry, I'm only showing off. If anyone asks, I'll just say I don't know anything. And really, I don't. June promised Asher with utmost sincerity. Asher nodded. He wasn't concerned. The requirements for the Firefox Queen's evolution, especially the need for a high bond level, were enough to stump most people. Reverse engineering the method? Not everyone was as simple as a honeybug. Satisfied, Asher left with little Raven perched on his shoulder. Late that night, June's parents, who returned home in a hurry after seeing the photo, Dawn, eagerly opening the photo, June's so-called frenemies. Forget sleep. Don't think you can avoid explaining this. Chapter 44. This is my new wife. High-end residential area in downtown New York City. Jump, 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 jump. I'm almost through this level. Don clutched his tablet, his eyes glued to the screen, his nerves tense and unrelenting. Darn game had killed him 8 times tonight already. But he had a feeling this time, this level, he could definitely. Ding dong. Suddenly, a message popped up. Don's hand twitched, and the precise movement he was aiming for ended up being just a bit too forceful. And once again, game over. Justin, who dressed just as sloppily as Don, leaned over with a sly grin. Did your parents message you, telling you to go home? Go back to get scolded? Don scowled, hesitating as he hovered over the notification. Besides, it might not be my parents. Justin suddenly realized, oh, you did something shady, didn't you? Yeah. Justin waggled his eyebrows. So, is it your future in-laws checking up on you? Don coughed twice and opened the app. When he saw the sender was June, his eyes widened in surprise. Huh, why June? Don's parents were both researchers, highly educated, highly intelligent, and also beast tamers. They firmly believed in like father, like son. Even though they didn't spend much time with him, they were confident that Don, who had inherited their excellent genes, wouldn't turn out to be a disappointment. But when Iris publicly thanked Asher for something, the couple realized that they might have been wrong about their approach to education. Acknowledging their mistake, they immediately made changes without delay. Previously, Henry and Marie would spend half a month at a time in the lab without returning home. Now, they came back frequently, much to Don's misery. When he wasn't dealing with school teachers, his 2 professor parents were at home giving him daily lessons. If he couldn't remember something after 1 explanation or failed to understand it after 2, they'd tug on his ears and make sure he learned it. And of course, there were constant comparisons to Asher. Look at Asher. What do you have compared to him? Jealous? Do you even have his talent? Even though Don had only met Asher once, it felt like Asher was omnipresent in his life. Frustrated, Don ran away from home and moved in with his good-for-nothing buddy, Justin. Every day was filled with eating, drinking, and gaming, a life of blissful irresponsibility. But Don hadn't forgotten the one who made his life miserable, Asher. No way could he let Asher have the last laugh when he was suffering like this. Thinking about how Asher often hung out with June and Lin Weiwei, surrounded by that ambiguous atmosphere, Don had secretly taken photos of Asher and June together, as well as photos of June frequenting forbidden zones. After adding some carefully crafted captions, he sent them to June's mother this afternoon. He thought June's parents would call or message him to ask for more details. To prepare, Don had even rehearsed an exaggerated explanation, convinced it would ruin Asher's reputation in their eyes. But unexpectedly, it was June herself who messaged him. Don was baffled. Still, he opened June's message and saw a photo radiating with pure joy. For 3 seconds, Don was stunned by June's beauty. Then, his gaze shifted to the large fox embracing June from behind. This is... Don frowned, zooming in on the image to examine it carefully. The more he looked, the stranger his expression became. While his intellect wasn't on par with his parents, years of exposure to their research environment and an above-average IQ allowed him to quickly draw a conclusion. If this photo were real, then that beast was the firefox's new evolved form. Could it be his parents' research institute had made a breakthrough? Don quickly checked the institute's official website. After confirming there was no new progress and that the evolution research on Firefox and Flame Dog remained at the speculation and testing stage, he made a swift judgment. It's fake. This photo is definitely fake. This has to be photoshopped. Hearing this, Justin leaned over. What's fake? What's photoshopped? Then he saw the picture of June and the big fox. Holy crap! Justin's eyes widened as he snatched the phone, staring at the fox queen in the photo with infatuation. This fox is so gorgeous and captivating. I declare, this is my new wife. He put the phone down and slung an arm around Don's shoulder. Buddy, you're my best bro, right? I'm even letting you crash at my place. Help me out. Ask June where she got this pet beast. I want one too. Price? Not an issue. His new wife had to come home with him. Don rolled his eyes and swatted Justin's hand off his shoulder. Who's your bro? Besides, it's not even clear if the photo's real. I'm telling you it's fake, Don declared confidently. Justin didn't buy it. Why is it fake just because you say so? Just because you've never seen it? Maybe June actually tamed a new pet beast in the Forbidden Zone. For his new wife, Justin was no longer fighting on the same side as Don, talking smack about June or Asher. Sure, he'd join in, but bad-mouthing his new wife? Absolutely not. Don, look at this fox. Its fur color, its design, its appearance. Doesn't it look like a specially evolved fire fox? Don tried reasoning with Justin. The problem is the known evolution path for Firefox only leads to Flame Fox, and Flame Fox doesn't look like this. I'm telling you, June definitely photoshopped this to mess with me. Justin, why can't it be a newly evolved form we don't know about? No way. Absolutely impossible. Don was fuming. What happened to Brotherhood? Now you're siding with June? Why would June waste her time photoshopping just for you? Do you think you're that important? Justin shrugged. You should know by now how little she cares about you. Besides, Justin continued, didn't you say before that June and Asher hanging out was all for research? Maybe they really did discover a new evolution path for Firefox. Don was so mad he was shaking, his grip on the phone trembling. Fine, I'll get proof right now. Don immediately sent the photo to his father, Henry. Justin might not believe him, but he'd have to believe his dad. With his father's sharp eye and expertise, he'd easily spot that this photo was fake. Forget about new wife. He'd make sure Justin's dreams were shattered. Chapter 45. Life is full of ups and downs. Mostly downs. Don Dad, look at this photo. Isn't it photoshopped? Henry had just finished a new round of resource adaptation testing. While waiting for the results and planning to take a short break, he received a message from his rebellious son, accompanied by a photo. What else could Henry do? He picked up his glasses from the table, put them back on, and examined the photo. And then, this is the evolved form of the little fire fox. In an instant, Henry shot up from his chair, his hand trembling as he held the phone. It looks so much like it. Marie, come take a look. Henry called to Marie, who was organizing experiment records not far away. Marie walked over, saying, What's got you so? Before she could finish her sentence, she froze in shock at the photo Henry shoved in front of her. The new evolution form of the little fire fox? Marie's voice shot up 2 octaves. The researchers in the lab turned their attention to them. Although curious, they refrained from approaching due to Henry and Marie's status as project leaders. Instead, they exchanged silent glances, trying to decipher the situation. Had they just heard correctly? The new evolution form of the little fire fox was discovered by someone else? The lab fell silent, everyone engaging in unspoken speculation. Meanwhile, Henry and Marie were too absorbed in studying the photos sent by Don to notice. They had unconsciously ignored June, who was in the image, focusing solely on the magnificent red fox. Both of them were captivated, as if desperate to pull the fox queen out of the photo and study it thoroughly. Calm down, calm down. Marie took a couple of deep breaths, trying to steady herself. However, her own hands were trembling. As a veteran researcher accustomed to precise experiments, Marie's hands were usually as steady as a surgeon's. For her hands to tremble like this, it spoke volumes about the intensity of her shock. It was hard to remain calm. 6 years. For 6 whole years, they had painstakingly researched new evolution pathways for the little firefox and the crimson flamehound, finally making some progress. That didn't mean they were clueless about what the evolved form of the little firefox might look like. Through extensive research on fox species and analysis of the similarities between the little firefox and the crimson flamehound, Henry and Marie had developed a rough idea of its evolutionary image. The key point of their research was the king attribute. Both the little firefox and the crimson flamehound were believed to possess this attribute in their evolutionary pathways. Unlike elemental attributes like wind, fire, lightning, water, grass, or fairy, the king attribute referred to a unique characteristic activated during evolution that imbued the creature with extraordinary dominance over its species and a measure of authority over other extraordinary beings. In theory, all extraordinary creatures had a king attribute evolution pathway. But theory was theory. It had yet to be proven. Out of over 200 known extraordinary creatures, only 21 species were confirmed to have evolutionary forms with the king attribute, accounting for less than 10%. After rigorous research, Henry and Marie concluded that the little firefox's new evolution form must possess the king attribute. They were studying the 21 confirmed species to identify common traits, which would help finalize the little firefox's evolutionary pathway. And then this photo appeared. Although June obscured much of the fox queen's body in the picture, the sheer majestic aura of the king attribute was unmistakable. Henry and Marie exchanged a glance. Henry's voice faltered. He couldn't finish a sentence. For 6 years, they had poured their hearts into researching the little firefox and the crimson flame hound's new evolution pathways. Now that they were finally making progress, this photo dropped out of nowhere. Their excitement at seeing the fox queen's final evolution form was overshadowed by the dismay that it wasn't their work. After a moment, Henry resolutely said, "First, we confirm whether this photo is real. Then, we'll discuss what to do next." He hadn't ruled out the possibility that the photo was fake. After all, with today's image editing technology, anything was possible. The lab's computer could verify the authenticity of the photo, which was likely why Dawn sent it over. Marie nodded, agreeing with Henry's plan. The photo was uploaded to the computer. Researchers discreetly gathered around, stealing glances at the screen. And then, they froze in shock. Wait, what were they seeing? The mesmerizing red fox. The computer quickly generated the result. Minor retouching detected. Not photoshopped. Do you want to restore the original image? Yes, no. Minor retouching? Henry and Marie exchanged a complicated look, unsure whether to feel relief or disappointment. Yes, a single click of the mouse. After a minute of processing, the restored image appeared. Henry. Marie. Is there any difference between the restored and original versions? Henry asked, utterly baffled. A young female researcher hesitantly offered, could it be possible that the girl in the photo retouched her own appearance a bit? Girls editing their selfies, it wasn't uncommon. Henry blinked, realization dawning. Right? This was a picture of June with the evolved little firefox. Any edits were likely made to June, not the fox queen. Henry let out a long sigh, his chest rising and falling as he tried to calm his racing heart. Give me a moment. I need a moment. He steadied himself against the table, one hand waving dismissively. Marie wasn't faring much better, her own composure thoroughly shaken.